There are two circumstances in the house buying process where you should engage a building inspector. In one circumstance, they might uncover deal breakers that would save you a lot of money and a huge amount of heartbreak. In the second circumstance, it might be too late. What sort of things should be uncovered and what should you be worried about?
Welcome to Your First Home Buyer Guide, the podcast for first home buyers who want to get it right.
I'm Megan and that was Veronica. We're both buyer's agents and probably old enough to be your mums. But that's a good thing because between us we've got over 40 years experience and we are going to share with you bucket loads of stories about avoidable mistakes. Together we're going to make sure that you get unbiased and real information that you can rely on so you can get where you want to be without missing a step.
Now, we've got loads of great tips for you in this episode, and if you'd like more useful tools, head over to the website homebuyeracademy.com.au. There you'll find free checklists that you can download, a free mini course on how to price a property, and our Where to Buy workshop for only $39. Priceless stuff, really.
Bargain. But before we get into the interesting stuff in this week's episode, here's the boring bit, the disclaimer. You, of course, know that nothing in this podcast is to be taken as personal advice. We always recommend getting the advice of an expert in their field of expertise. Now, we've done our very best to ensure that the content is correct at the time of recording, but things change. So check with the relevant government authority or your advisors to get the most up-to-date information.
Today we're talking about building inspector horror stories. If you're buying an existing house, you should be getting a building inspection before you commit to the purchase. But what happens when you buy off the plan or a house and land package? Then you get a handover inspection, and these have been known to reveal some scary things.
Yes.
But before we get into that, Megan always has a video behind her, a picture, I should say, behind her in the video. And I guess in honour of our special guests today, she's got a falling down house. What the hell is that, Megan?
I've noticed.
This is hilarious. So I find different things like cool houses, interesting architecture, whatever the case may be. If you're not tuned in on YouTube, do yourself a favour. I think that we have all driven past at some point in time a farm that has a shed that's falling down. Now, I don't know how you'd even do an inspection on this one. I don't think there's anything to be salvaged. Just
looks like it's falling in on itself. Now, we have a pair of special guests today. We've got building inspectors Zeher and Ed from siteinspections.com.au. Zeher has been making a bit of a name for himself of late due to his revealing TikTok videos that not only highlight some shoddy workmanship out there amongst our builder community, but they're also very educational, these videos. That's one of the reasons I quite love them. So thank you so much for joining us today, fellows. We're going to kick off and dig into...
Thank you.
We've got lots to ask you.
Videos, they amuse me no end.
Good, no problem.
Look, people think that brand new means trouble-free, but like always, we are here to open your eyes to the things that you don't know that you don't know. A pre-purchase inspection is a few parts of the steps in your first home buyer guide. Step 1 being build your support crew, so get good people on board. And step 7 being evaluate, and it should be a make or break part of your process. Now, Zeher, you have been called the David Attenborough of building inspections, as I saw on one of your top TikTok videos.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's largely because of the way that you convey your information, which I just love. Now, if you haven't viewed any of these videos, do yourself a favour and get right on there.
We've got the links in the show notes, everyone, so you can make it very easy little trip there.
Zeher, how long have you guys been in the game?
So I've been a builder for over 15 years. I registered builder and practitioner, and basically, been in the game for a while. Yeah, and decided to shift my work to building inspections.
Tell me about that, because a lot of the inspectors that we use in Brisbane are ex-builders, and there's a very specific reason that we do that, because there's an in-depth knowledge that's there. Why did you go from hands-on tools to actually looking at things and helping people uncover what might be issues?
Well, it's hard to find good tradies out there at the moment.
That's
And
true.
the thing is, yes, the thing is, you know, if you've got around, you know, a couple of job sites, 10 sites, and you can't sit there and manage every single trade. You kind of trust that trade that is going to do the right
Yeah.
thing. And the thing is, they give you a certificate of compliance, and you rely on that as a builder. But when you hand over the job and you start getting water leaks, cracks, or whatever, and then you get the certificate, and the trades are saying that, hey, look, it is compliant, but as a builder, you're responsible for it. So they take you to court, and the trade basically, you know, doesn't answer their phone calls anymore, doesn't come back to the job, and then the builder is liable for all rectifications. So that's why I kind of like left the building trade. I still do jobs here and there, but basically, yeah. So that's one of the biggest reasons that I left the job. It's hard to find good workers out there.
Interesting.
Let's unpack that for a little bit.
Yeah, because I don't know that a lot of people know that, and I think that's really important to understand.
Yeah, sure. So basically, when a waterproofer gives you a waterproofing certificate that it says it is compliant and it's done as per the Australian standards, the builder doesn't check that. The building surveyor doesn't check that. And basically, we rely on this document that this trade has done the correct thing, but they haven't.
So
90% of the time, they don't.
So who issues a certificate?
The waterproofer.
The person who's done the job.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. That's right. And we trust the trade. We say, thank you very much for the certificate. The building surveyor ticks it off. Yep, we have received a certificate of compliance, but it's non-compliant works. Like today, I did an inspection for a job, for a pre-purchase inspection, and the client, he really got an inspector to do the job, but both showers are leaking. the actual waterproofing is non-compliant, and he's already paid a deposit and everything, and now he wants out because 3 bathrooms need to be demolished now to fix the waterproofing.
But that's not something that's easy to
signed
see.
Off. There's an OC permit and it's signed off already.
Here, I'm just so curious because it's not easy to see, right? This is below tiles. Let's talk about waterproofing. Where's waterproofing? You sort of you have your plaster, you have your base. If anyone's watched The Block, you know that's part of the process. But
I think it's part of the problem.
And then there's this kind of membrane that is painted on, a very, very specific special membrane that's painted onto certain penetrations and parts. And then the tiles go on top of that. So you can't see that, can you?
Exactly right. So what happens is that the problem is the water under the tiles. So the surface water is going into the drain. That's no problem. But the thing is, what happens what we do, we basically block the drainage, and we put a bit of water, around 10-20 mil of water in the shower base, which puts pressure, the hydrostatic pressure of the water, pushes the water under the tiles through the grout, to go to the puddle flange, which is designed to let the subsurface water go under the tiles into the drain. But the thing is, as you leave it on, because grout is porous, the water under the tiles starts spreading because of the hydrostatic pressure, and then it exits the shower area. It finds an outlet to get out of the shower area into the wet area. Now, water going into the wet area is okay, but when it exits the wet area, like in your bedroom, that's non-compliant. And the thing is, you have to insert water stops between the shower area and the wet area, and also the wet area as well. And they're not installed properly, which lets the water come out, as per my videos when you watch them.
Yeah.
And to accelerate the process during the inspection, we block the drain, and we just leave it for 15 minutes and see what happens. And basically, the water goes under the grout, under the tiles, and the glue starts sucking it up, and then it goes outside the shower area. You know.
So you would do this on both existing properties and new properties?
Yeah, it depends how many times you use the shower. If you use the shower like once every week, it's all right. It kind of delays the process for like 2 or 3 years, and then it starts to come out because the water would have made a track under the tiles. The water under the tiles. And that's why you have to follow the
where we don't want water down there. We want it on top of the tiles, yeah?
Yeah, but in Australia, it's okay for they allow ceramic grout, which is porous. In the US, they don't use porous grout. They use epoxy grout, which is a non-porous, so only allows the water to go on the surface and straight into the drain.
So what you're saying there is the waterproofing, as long as that's been done to standard, like it won't have any holes in it, so it's properly applied. But also, there's a stop between the edge of the bathroom, or edge of the shower and the bathroom, and then the edge of the bathroom and whatever other the next room is. And so, if you've got carpet, because I watched one of your videos where that you're pulling up the carpet at the, or
and the water's coming out.
Yeah, and that's because they haven't put that extra layer, that extra little trough or lip or whatever.
See the aluminium, the aluminium strip in that video. The water's going underneath the aluminium strip. It's supposed to come on it and basically stay there, encapsulate the whole area around the shower and around the bathroom
until it dries.
Not let the water exit, and they haven't done that right.
Wow! So little things like that, because I know
things like that. Aren't they important? Because
it is. But the thing is, this problem only occurs after 3 or 4 years. It depends how far the shower is. If it's like 2 meters away from the door, it will take around 2 years for it to reach the area.
And then you're well outside a builder's warranty, if there is one.
Oh, no, it's still within the builder's warranty.
In Victoria.
You're right.
Yeah. And New South Wales defects. Yep. 6 years.
But, I think the question becomes then, how do you get the builder to come back?
Yes, that was one of our questions.
Talk to us more about that, because that's really hard, particularly in this period where there are some builders who are going broke. And things are a little bit difficult for trades that might be changing entities to avoid some of these sort of liability issues as well.
Yeah, I mean, and the bathrooms are one of the most expensive rooms in the house, right, next to the kitchen. To demolish, and because basically if you've got to redo waterproofing, you literally have to demolish the bathroom and start again.
Rip everything out, haven't you?
Can't save anything. Maybe the toilet cistern, and that's about it, because usually the cabinets often are embedded inside the tiles as well. So they're wicking water up, right? So the cabinetry is damaged. So maybe just the basin, the taps, and that's about it. And the toilet cistern is all you can actually save from it if you want to save it. But it's really saving a couple of bucks in something that's probably going to cost you $20,000 to $30,000 to rectify by the time you've ripped everything out and put it all back together again.
We're massive advocates. So we're just like, I
know. We've got so many questions.
All these questions.
How often though would your clients, so somebody that gets you to do a handover inspection and you discover things like that, when you say there, Ed, the big challenge is getting the builder back. Obviously they want their money, because you're doing this as a pre-settlement inspection, effectively, right? They want their money, but they don't want to go fixing things. Partly also because someone else did it and handed them a certificate and they're assuming it's all right. And they hope that nobody engages you guys to come and check it. And a lot of people assume that all these things are done well. They just make the assumption that there shouldn't be any problems. How successful are people in getting these things rectified before they have to hand their money over? Or is there a big fight because the builder's saying, well, no, I've got a certificate saying it complies?
Well, correct. So, I mean, that's the first thing the builder will hold up, saying I've got a certificate of compliance, but that's meaningless, right? We can actually show that the certificate is literally untrue, right? I mean, and because the waterproofer can self-comply, right? Of course, the work that they've done is compliant in their view, but it doesn't comply to the Australian standards by a long shot. So, in terms of getting builders back, it's a range, right? Some come back. I mean, we do staged inspections as well. So sometimes during the build process, we're actually going out there testing the thickness of the membrane and comparing that against the manufacturer's data sheet. So you're
actually seeing it during the building process and getting
correct, so then it's easier for the builder to come back and say to the waterproof, you need to do a second coat, right? Because the membrane's not thick enough, or the water stop hasn't been done properly, and things like that. So that's not as costly. But then as the build progresses, it becomes more and more costly. And for some cases, it's been the case of the power of social media, right? I mean, all they need is a video up on, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and before you know it, sometimes negotiations recommence in a more positive light fairly quickly afterwards.
That's really interesting, because I did see on one of your videos that a builder did respond to one of your videos and say, well, actually, I was the builder on there.
I've taken some videos down. I've actually taken some videos. I've took some videos down because the client goes, the builder's come back to me and he's willing to rectify only if the videos are taken down. So I go, all right, I'll put them in private, but if he doesn't fix it, I'm putting them back on.
And do you
Very
think sometimes
effective.
that's like it's a moment of oh God, what's
like
that? I didn't
1
know
hour,
there was a problem, or
Yeah.
I'm just going to push and push and push until I can't push anymore, and then I'm going to have to do it.
Well, it's a mixture of the two, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we had one client who had been pushing the builder, trying to think of how long, for 2 years, basically. It was
Yeah.
pre-COVID, right?
God.
So over 2 years now. And of course, the builder, it's COVID, we can't come back. She's had to stop using her ensuite bathroom. And that's the one that was really leaking, right? You just put the shower hose on the wall and it's out in the bedroom in no time flat, right?
God.
And so she had to use the second bathroom, which also had problems, right? So, yeah, so this was the thing. And the builder sent out their maintenance supervisor, who happened to be their bricklayer, right? So he put on his maintenance supervisor hat, went inside. Oh, we need to do is regrout and everything will be good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no.
So they're trying to fix the problem by eliminating the water from going under the tiles because the proposal was to use epoxy grout. That's what the supervisor said. That's what I think it's Rock Donnybrook, was it that video?
Or Melton,
the Digger's Rest.
The Digger's Rest, yeah,
the Digger's Rest video.
Yeah.
So he proposed to use epoxy grout, and the client is like, "Oh, all right, as long as it fixes the problem." But the thing is, I told her that's just a temporary fix,
mask,
because
isn't it?
the epoxy grout, it basically is only allowing the surface water to go inside the drain. But the thing is, the negative thing about epoxy grout is that it's so hard that any movement in the house will make it crack, but on the sides.
Right.
So you won't
I
even
was
see
going
the
to
crack.
ask, why do we not use that here? If that's
So the ceramic grout, it's got polymer in it and it's flexible. The epoxy grout, it's really, really hard, and it's non-porous, so it doesn't allow the water to go under the tiles. And that's what these guys are trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid to fix the membrane because the waterproofing is not compliant. So they're thinking, all right, we'll use epoxy grout, and that way it eliminates water from going under the tiles. And there you go, problem solved. And it's like $500 to fix. But to fix the bathroom properly, it's around 20, 30 grand.
As hard as that. So we talked about waterproofing. That's a big one. Are there, Veronica, see, we're just like,
I know, we get all excited. We just talk over each other. You go, Megan. I'll ask my question later.
What are some of the other common faults that you see?
Oh, no, can we, just before you get into that, I find this fascinating because when I walk through houses and I see evidence of water doing its thing, because water will find the path of least resistance, and I'm quite often fascinated by the way that happens. And I remember learning about the capillary action, because I worked in the plumbing industry for a while, believe it or not. Anyway, and I've often noticed around the doors of bathrooms, sometimes where there's carpet, on the next room, and I've discoloring around the door frame, in the bottom of the bathroom. And I've often looked at it and go, where's the shower's way over there? And how the hell has water got to there? And so you've just explained that for me, basically, that the actual design is that the waterproofing effectively protects, the foundations of the house or what's underneath the bathroom. But the tile and the grout doesn't protect the water from going to the waterproofing membrane.
It's okay. It's okay for the water under the tiles, but it has to be contained within the wet area.
Yes.
Now, AS 3740, which is the waterproofing standard in 2010, allows the embedment of the door frame and the architrave into the tiles.
Right.
But the thing is, if you want to do that, you have to membrane and seal the whole thing. Now, if you're getting that swelling, it means sucking up the water.
Yeah.
The new Australian standard that came out last year for waterproofing, it eliminates the whole thing. You're not allowed to even embed them anymore. You have to basically finish them off about 2 to 3 mil above the finished floor level.
Got it.
So that's the door frames and the jambs above the floor level.
If you do see that problem where it's wicking up and swelling, it means you've got waterproofing issues.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness. So this opens up a whole new can of worms. And we'll finish this episode in 6 hours. But so one of the things that I see is, I like to hang around and check out forums online and all those sorts of things. People saying, look at how terribly my builder finished this. The door frame doesn't even go into the tile area. Do I put some silicone or some normal gaps or something to fill in that gap? So how do you finish that off to to a point that it looks aesthetically pleasing, but it actually doesn't suck the water up in the way that you're saying it should.
Well, look, the Australian standards, it has actually a detail. There's a diagram that shows how to actually finish it. Basically, you just cork it. You just put a nice sealant there.
You just do.
It should be corked.
Okay.
It should be corked, yeah. And there's a detail now for it, which came out last year. And I've always put the extract in my videos how it's supposed to be, but people kind of don't look at it.
What makes me
information?
Too much info. I don't know if I'm putting
we're just mesmerised by the David Attenborough voice that is going through the video.
Oh no, you slow yourself down. It's hilarious to give gravitas. But you obviously, it seems to be that you have a encyclopedic knowledge of the Australian standards, you know, and the building code and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit alarming that people are actually building these properties don't have that same encyclopedic knowledge.
They don't,
yeah. I mean, they definitely don't. That's one of the issues that the whole industry faces, right? People leave trade school and have never even flicked over past, you know, the cover of a Australian standard or sometimes the NCC, right? Now, builders will often refer to the NCC, but a lot of these individual trades, like waterproofing, as an example, I mean, most of us have probably sat exams at some stage in our lifetime, right, to move on with our careers or educate and learn and things like that. And this is something that needs to be indoctrinated into the industry itself, right?
Is it an ongoing learning? Like in some industries you have CPD, compulsory professional development. Is that what you think should be sort of out there? You have to keep going back to the standard. You have to keep going back and reproving yourself.
Yeah, look, my personal opinion is yes, it should be. There's nothing wrong with it. We're always learning. I mean, as we can see, the standards change every couple of years anyway. So we issued one report and somebody said, I've been doing it this way for 20 years. How dare you tell me how to... I can imagine all the bad houses that have probably ended up like the one behind you there, Megan. But, you know, but that's what happens, right? It's people don't move. People kind of, you know, believe that, you know, how we built in the 1940s and 50s is how we continue to build today, but it's not, right? It's very, very different.
We learn so much, don't we? And that comes over time, and also our understanding of the climate and the environment that we're in, and the soils that we're building on, and all of those things have an impact on building practices.
Yep, exactly. The change in products, you know, the vast range of products you can now use in building and construction, it all sort of adds to the complexity. And you know, it is hard for a builder to keep up to date. I'm not saying it's an easy task, but I mean, if you want to be professional in your job and your career, it's kind of something that you really need to do. And you know, I've worked with plumbers and chippies in the past that do keep up to date with it. But they're the few and far between, right? It's, you know, most of them just rock up to the side, and you know, that's how I did it 10 years ago is how I'm doing it today.
I think about all the building codes that I'm familiar with that have changed, like staircases, you know, the steepness of staircases, for instance, or the height of balustrades, or window openings in apartments. Like safety is one aspect that will result in obviously changes to the building code and various regulations. It's interesting though, it's something that we rail about in our industry too, the buyer's agency side of our business. You know, unfortunately, there's some buyer's agents that really understand legislation and their responsibilities and to clients, and there's others that don't. And even though we've got CPD in our industry, you still got people who will do the bare minimum just to tick a box versus those who are actively engaging and they're listening. So this is something I imagine extends in every single career and profession and trade.
Of course.
The problem with the building industry, of course, is that the sheer amount of money that people are paying to buy a product and the pain and suffering really that can be experienced by people living in a house that's defective, particularly with water, you know, because obviously water creates so many problems, the mold, or it could be just the eroding the actual fabric of the property as well. And so you've got some structural issues that can be created. So there's so many things that can go wrong. But I guess also what you said earlier that really piqued my curiosity was that some people engage you to do staged inspections. So I would imagine that that's an additional cost to a purchaser, but somebody who's obviously aware of what can go wrong. And the very fact that once the building is started, you know, it's layer upon layer upon layer, and there's certain things that are done, then covered up. Waterproofing is a classic example. And then you don't know afterwards whether it was done right or not. So what's involved? Like, if you were, how many people would really engage you to do a staged inspection? What sort of person would, and what type of cost would that add to you know, their purchasing price effectively?
Yeah, look, it obviously varies on the complexity of the build, and you know, we need to look at the architectural drawings, the structural engineering drawings, and all those sorts of things. Now, you know, we also tend to try and recommend to clients. I mean, there are some statutory inspections that the registered building surveyor, the guy who stamps the plan, right, has to do. So that's usually pre-slab framing. Do you really need us to do that? Technically, no. Some people still do get us to do a QA check, and believe it or not, we have actually uncovered issues that have to go back and be rectified. And we've had some jobs go totally on hold until those rectification works take place. So human error can occur, right? So, but you know, so as you're saying, it does add to the cost. It comes back down to, you know, somebody making a decision on, well, this is probably the biggest investment of my lifetime. Am I here for 1-2 years, a short time and a good time, or is this really the family home for like 20 years, right? Because typically you don't want to renovate your bathrooms after 5 to 10 years, right? Maybe after 15 or 20 or something, you know, depending on your change of styles and everything else. Maybe that's the time that you choose to do it. But you certainly don't want to embark on it because the substructure is giving way, right?
Yeah, so true.
So look, I mean, the costs are just so dependent, right? It can be anything from, you know, $1,000 per stage upwards. So that's like pre-slab fixing, you know, lock-up, frame, lock-up, fixing, and then final handover.
Waterproofing as well.
Yeah, we come in and do waterproofing as well, as part of that process too, to actually test the thickness of the membrane and make sure that they've done the water stops for showers, door openings, like all of that sort of stuff.
One of the volume builders that we got engaged to by a client to do an inspection for the base stage. I did basically an inspection there. And because I was too picky on the actual defects, I got banned from that job site now.
I've heard of this.
If you watch one of my videos about the email that says, you know, you got where the client has to marry the builder. I made a video about that email. That's the actual builder. He started telling, what did he say on the email? Something about the client has to have a strong and
a long term. We're in a strong relationship for the next 9 months, and you know, then it's probably a divorce thereafter, right? But
wow.
He goes, it's a marriage, you know, between the client and the builder. Why do you need a building inspector for? You know.
Do you know?
So I got an extract
18
of
years
that email,
ago,
and I joked about it.
18 years ago, we had people saying, real estate agents saying, why would you want a buyer's agent?
Yeah.
So it's a really, and it is, it's protection. It is, you know, you don't go into a marriage without consulting often your family or, you know, people who have been there before, done it before. Are they licensed to give you marriage advice? Probably not. So a little bit different to you guys, but you know, you just don't walk in eyes closed with no consultation or expert input. And we talk about this, like just bang on about it constantly within the course. And that is get the experts who are experts in their field and who will stay on track to give you the advice. And this is, I guess, why we're opening people's eyes to this is you think that a new property is going to be quite perfect. There might be a few little bits and pieces, but as you're starting to reveal to people and show them in quite a public way through your videos, there is a lot that can go wrong through the process, and it is hard to unravel those things once things are finished. And it's hard to get builders back sometimes. Yeah, a lot of builders have a lot of pride in their work. We're certainly not suggesting that all builders are like this, and I don't know if you've got any stats on what percentage you would find, but I would expect that almost all properties will have some defects of some type, because we're human beings and we're not exact. It's how the builders then deal with those defects and how they can get rectified, I think, that is a really big part of what we want people to think about. to engage people who can really help them through that process.
Yeah.
And that's the critical part as well, right? Is that, I mean, we're often engaged by people. It's either two stages, right? They've heard about us and they're getting us to do the staged inspections because they're engaging a builder to build.
Yeah.
Some of them believe that because they're going with a volume builder that they're in safe hands. But, the big thing is that even the volume builders have to rely on multiple trades, and their site supervisors are spread across, I don't know how many different job sites, right? So you don't actually get much focused attention on each individual build as perhaps they should, right? So that's the whole idea behind the stage inspections. But you're right as well in terms of if we do it at the end, I mean, it overwhelms the builder, right?
Yeah.
And the costs are huge.
Yeah.
In some cases to rectify. Like if you've got to do every bathroom again, you're in trouble. But I've got to be honest, I mean, we've seen it in the low-end builds for like a $300,000 build, and we've inspected $3 million plus builds, and it's the same issues.
Yeah.
Wow.
What
So
are
you're
some of
not
those other
safe.
common faults?
You're not safe.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about waterproofing, which is obviously very important, and probably one of the most costly things to rectify. And even in some of those big complexes, Veronica, I've seen water issues from roofs and rooftop gardens, and that can go on and on and on, be very, very costly for a long period of time. But what are some of the other things that you commonly see, guys?
Well, roofing's probably the next main one.
Yeah, roofing, is a lot as well. Non-compliant roofing works
Which
all
is
the time.
water again.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's usually what the homeowner ends up seeing, right?
Yeah.
So either water in the bathroom being wicked up somewhere, or running out of the shower, or damaging carpets, or it's coming in through your ceiling in the lounge room or some other room in the house, or running down windows or whatever the cause might be. So it's very visible very quickly when you've got the current rain events that we're all experiencing in Australia at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's something that I know every property manager I know was suddenly very, very busy, with roofing repairs and water repairs for a period of time. I was talking to one the other day who said that after the last downpour, they all sit there on tenterhooks waiting for the phones to start going crazy. All the tenants telling them about the leaks, and it's like, no, nothing. We've actually managed to fix every property that we have in in our portfolio, which is nice. But there's also, I imagine, quite a lot of other defects that would not manifest necessarily. And I mean, one of the videos I was looking at yours had sort of all these walls were bowed, all the internal walls, nothing was square and everything was bowed. Yeah. Now, is that a defect that can get fixed, or is that something that someone's got to have to live with?
Well, there's that can be fixed. You got to demo the wall. There's a couple of videos back. You'll see how another volume builder has actually demoed the whole wall in the kitchen, removed all the kitchen. I couldn't believe he'd done that.
Wow.
About 5 videos back. But the thing is, the whole wall was bowed and all that. It was about 20 mil bow. So they removed all the kitchen. They ripped out all the plaster. And I mean, this was the bought off the plan, I think. And it was settlement. And then they had to demo all the kitchen. And they fixed it. They had to fix it. And sorry, I came back to inspect it before they plastered, and it was still out.
So it was actually the framing that was out, or even possibly the concrete floor.
Did you offer to give them a spirit level?
Oh my God!
I think maybe they need to stay off the spirits for a while. But look.
We mentioned no names here. No names.
I always scope the whole area, and I try to look. I'll look in the bins, and I find. I want to see what I find. I find alcohol, beer bottles, this and that, and it explains the whole job. What's going on there?
Oh my God!
So it's a cultural thing, do you think, that sits behind some of these wonky walls?
It's alarming, actually. It's probably worse. Certainly, watching your videos, it makes me aware how prevalent it is, which makes me think it's probably worse than people realize. I mean, what proportion of houses? I mean, and look, they're all going to have something little at least, right? Would expect something little at least in every property.
Yeah.
What proportion of properties would you inspect as a handover inspection that have something more than minor?
Well, I mean, pretty well all of them. If they've got a metal roof, for example, there's a lot of non-compliance in the roof plumbing work that's basically being done with sumps and box gutters and capping and all that sort of thing. the bathrooms are critical. Balconies is another one. They're almost always non-compliant, right? In a range of different matters. That's not even inspecting the waterproofing, but just how they've just been built, not to plan and things like that often. People just seem to be taking shortcuts everywhere. And that's why, with our inspections, we do everything with a copy of the plans in hand, right? A lot of other inspectors just walk in, walk out, right? And I mean, I can pick painting defects, and yes, they appear in our report as well, more from a completeness sake point of view than as a primary area of concern. But I mean, obviously, if there's a big paint drip coming down the wall, or somebody's like literally tipped a bucket of paint over the tiles and it's marked the ceramic grout and marked the grout and things like that. Yeah, of course you've got to pick on those sorts of things because it's got to be clean. It's in the living area. I mean, if somebody's going to notice it,
it's
right?
Obvious.
Correct. Yeah. So there are those sorts of things, and even the walls that we just spoke of earlier. I mean, look, we pick them when we see them, right? So, but in some cases they're like in the main hallway, in the main passageway. I mean, as you walk in the door, it's like I'm almost getting a migraine just from looking at these bows in walls everywhere. And I honestly don't get it. How
did they not pick it up?
Well, correct.
Yeah.
Well, I actually, the inspection that I did today, that the client got another inspector to inspect. Yeah, he's on his report. He's got a picture of the ceiling space that it's there's a lot of insulation and I can't go in. But I went in because if I can fit in the hole, I want to go in. So I went inside. There were gang nails that were separated from the truss, which is a major defect. They had the range hood output straight into the insulation, not to out there. I'm gonna make a video about that really, really soon. They've got electrical faults. They've got the plasters incorrect. They've got the fans, the extraction fans. The outlet is blocked by the insulation. So, so this guy has missed all those items in the roof, there was about 10 defects there, and then 2 of them were major. So that's what happens.
And I guess when I hear those things, they're defects that can be overcome, but you have to identify them to overcome them before they become issues and actually cause more damage than could be overcome. Does that make sense? Did I say that well?
Exactly. So one of the property owners that had the bathroom issues, right, in Diggers Rest, she asked for a full house inspection, which we did. We went into the ceiling space as well, and her exhaust fan from the range hood just goes into the open space, even though she has sarking in the roof, and it's meant to be connected to the outside through a canopy. And anyway, there's electrical wiring running over that, and that electrical wiring is now covered in grease and oil because they've been in the house for 4 years. So there's a potential fire hazard there.
It's a breach of Australian standards for electrical. Yeah.
So it's a breach, but it's reaching the stage where it's becoming a potential hazard, right? I mean, obviously the Australian standards identifies it as a hazard right from the outset, and she had HVAC contractors from the builder going up there rectifying an issue with their central heating unit. And that person had to go past that spot at least 2 times and didn't actually draw her attention to it, right? So it just goes to show you the case of, I hear on the job site so often, not my job, mate.
Not my job. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Oh, geez, the electricians did a shoddy job over there, but I'm not going to say anything to anybody. Why?
Well, the Sparky probably ran his wires before the guy who, cut the hole in the ceiling for the fan, right? So maybe it's not the Sparky's issue, but you know what I mean? This is,
It's a care and attention,
it's a holistic
isn't it?
thing too, isn't it? Care and attention, and holistic, like looking at, is this big picture right, or is it just my part that I've got to focus on and get out of here as quick as I can because I'm on an hourly rate.
Your job is very much obviously a warrior, protecting the purchasers, right? Yeah. And I love the fact you're so unapologetic about it. It's like, I'm here and I'm going to show you exactly what is wrong here. And I'm annoyed by these builders. I hate the fact that they do this. And it's like you got a personal it's personal in a way. And I like that because we're a bit the same about our profession, right? But what I think is rather interesting is that some of the builders have gone back and rectified, and the deal is that you remove the video, and that's all well and good. Do you think that some of these builders are starting to see, well, actually, maybe it's cheaper to do it right first time rather than wait for someone like you to come through and find it, having to replace walls in kitchens and all the rest of it that they might need to do, or redo waterproofing? Do you think, I know you've got to chip away at it one builder at a time, but do you think there's been anyone that's responded in that way? Or are they still covering up?
No.
Sadly, no. I mean, I can giggle about it and laugh, but it's and this is where I think it becomes quite disappointing, right, in terms of the industry as a whole, and kind of what I sort of regard as a bit of a lack of professionalism, right? I mean, there aren't too many people, let's say you're a nurse or a whatever, you know, somebody's fallen over and hurt themselves in the street. Are you going to walk past that person, or are you going to stop and help? You know, most people stop and help. Honestly, with some of these jobs, when we see a wonky wall as an example, I mean, you don't even need to know the standards to realise it's out, right? I mean, you can see it at framing stage.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. So some site supervisors walked up and down that hallway, I don't know how many times, past those walls and not done a thing about it. Right?
Do you know what I hear sometimes? Oh, it's just settling.
Oh, yeah, well... I mean, they'll try any excuse. And I guess this is the other thing that, well, it's actually true. Builders will just say, no, just give it time.
Give it time,
this,
it'll settle.
That.
Yeah.
And then people come back to us saying, is this reasonable? Well, you know, they're just trying to pull one over you, right?
It's not going to settle straight.
No, well, that's it.
If it's wonky now, it's not going to wonky straight.
It's like, you know, the weather conditions, environmental. Oh, it's because the house was open for so long. No. Well, the other actually crazy thing is just painting tops and bottoms of doors.
Yes,
right?
it's a little thing, but it's so
right
important.
Around, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, literally I've not yet inspected, I don't think Z's inspected a house yet where it's been done properly, right? That's another classic. And it's even made worse with the laundry doors, the garage doors, and the front door, which are exposed to the elements, plus the laundry and bathroom doors, right? They're going to swell and change over time. Then 2 years or 12 months down the track, somebody's saying, oh, I'm finding the door hard to close and open, and the builder doesn't want to come back and adjust it, or they sent somebody in, they said, no, the hinges are all fitted properly. Well, you take one look at the top and bottom, it's not sealed, and okay, it's changing over time. In summertime I can close it, but in winter I can't.
Look, it's a big problem in Queensland because we have timber houses and they do move. And I had a house renovated to a really good degree, and I do have handover inspections. So any renovation work that I do and anything we purchase for people have handover inspections. But I had this house, and it had lovely 3.5 metre ceilings downstairs. And in the August winds, so it was VJ sheeting downstairs, VJ sheeting ceilings, cornicing and so forth. In the August winds, every single year, the entire house downstairs would open up, and then it would all come back for the rest of the year. So I'd have 3 weeks where all of the gaps would open up, and I'd ring the painter and the builder and I'd say, the house has opened up again. They'd say, give it 3 weeks and it'll be back to normal. And sure enough, it would be. So there are some environmental impacts. What we want to say to people is that's unusual. It's not common. And it is very much, it's very much a Queensland thing. But, if you have a house on a slab, you shouldn't expect that sort of thing to happen on a regular basis.
Well, that's right. I mean, the slabs are designed, not to move to that extent, right? Or at least to move as one uniform structure, right? Not independent, where if you're on stumps and footings, it's all different, right? So, but look, it's we always find something, right? And that's not to say we're out there, really trying to prove people wrong, but there's a degree of commonality, around a number of the things that we find.
So if your sister, your daughter, your mum or brother or whatever, anyone that's close to you, would you actually encourage them to buy a brand new house?
Well, to be honest, I'm actually looking to buy an investment property now. we went to doing an inspection. I got Ed with me, and just want to tell him what happened.
Well, we didn't have our stuff on.
I didn't, and I was surprised. I was surprised. The builder, I reckon the builder knew it was me, but I was wearing like a Superman hat and all that, pretending like I had a T-shirt that said non-compliant. So I'm thinking he might have recognized me.
Dead giveaway.
A little bit of a hint.
So we walked in, and it was at fixed-in stage, but they haven't tiled yet some areas, and they've got like, you can see that like the membrane on the wall, you can see half a coat on. You can see the nails under it.
Half a coat. It's like,
like they've just dry rolled it with the roller. But the thing is, the water stops when installed properly. The balcony substrate was non-compliant. There was no movement joints inside. Anything over 4.5 meters externally needs a movement joint. That wasn't there. There was so many defects, and I'm thinking far out. And they want 900,000. Not in Heidelberg.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's the whole job is non-compliant. The roofing is non-compliant, everything. And I'm like, oh, I didn't say anything. Ed was like, oh man, let's get out of here. 3 units, all the same.
So
same problem.
You're not going to buy one of those ones?
Guessing that's not for you.
Oh, no way.
No, good. I'm pleased to hear that. I wouldn't be buying brand new as an investment, by the way, just so you know. Anyway, just that's just a bit of free opinion from me.
Oh, really?
But it's not just brand new. I mean, we are also talking about renovations as well. So this is just, you don't just do handovers, inspections on brand new. This is for places that have had renovations as well, because that can be just as costly if there's been quite a significant renovation. You're buying something that you expect to be in a fairly, very much compliant with current standards when you're buying something that's renovated recently. So it's not just the brand news that you do; it is also established.
Yeah, well, exactly. So people often be renovating kitchens, bathrooms, right, or doing extensions. But kitchen and bathrooms are the biggest ones, right? And the minute you hear the word bathroom, you've got to put in waterproofing, right? I mean, otherwise they'll be probably doing another bathroom renovation in 4 or 5 years' time.
You just wasted your money on that new bathroom.
I guess it's very important if you are buying like a renovated home, just make sure you ask the owner, can I please have a copy of the waterproofing certificate or like the builder's warranty insurance? Because if there's any leaks, you're going to be, who are you going to chase? You can't chase the builder or the homeowner. You got to take him to court, and it's going to take you like 2 years.
Great advice. Let's tuck that in the nuggets. That is always, if there is a renovation, they might not have building plans because internal renovations don't always need it. But there should be a waterproofing certificate. There should be probably glazing certificate, depending on your council area as well. And probably plumbing certification or a new plumbing or drainage plan.
Anything under the Plumbers Act, anything over $500, you need to have a COC, a certificate of compliance. And if they did a dodgy, that means the plumber's going to get in trouble, because anything over $500, they have to register the job with the Victorian Building Authority.
Yep.
All right.
And so each state's different, but
that's exactly right.
I guess this is an awareness raising thing, isn't it? Like ask the questions. What do I need? I know I need something. What is it in my state and my council area that I need? And you've got some ideas now of what you do need to ask.
Yep.
And what can go wrong?
To make their inquiries. Sorry?
And what can go wrong? Just watch some of Zeher's videos. As I said, we'll put the link in the show notes, and your eyes will be opened as to what can go wrong, and also why it might be useful to look at a staged inspection regime, if you like, if you are going to buy off the plan or buy
getting your build done,
just commission a builder to build a renovation. It's not a bad thing to think about doing. And obviously these guys only operate in Victoria, but although I have to say, I just saw you doing a road trip to New South Wales here, but I'm not sure you'd want to do that very often. I'm sure there would be some building inspectors wherever you are. However, actually just on that, and this is, I guess, if we wrap it up on this, like in our industry, buyer's agents, there's a lot of buyer's agents out there, a lot of taking shortcuts to getting their qualifications. They don't have that much experience. They talk a good talk, but they don't actually necessarily do a good job. I know that that's the case with building inspectors because I've dealt with many of that are like that, and I've dealt with some excellent ones, which are worth their weight in gold. And I've read some building reports that I thought to myself, I know that person has not been under the house, has not been through the roof. I can tell because I've noticed more things that they've written about, like just my own cursory inspection. I've noticed more things than they've written about. I've had subsequent inspections and I've lined those reports up because the agent often gets one done, right? And I've lined them up side by side and I've gone, they didn't even note this termite damage. They didn't even note that leak. They didn't even note this stuff. So how would you recommend somebody choose a building inspector? You know, if they're not in your neck of the woods, that, you know, obviously they can see what you do, but anyone else, how would you recommend that what do they look for when they're choosing a building inspector?
Well, I mean, certainly they should ask for a sample report. So that's certainly something that we provide to all, prospective clients and things like that, so they can compare and contrast. Certainly the report should contain a lot of detail around compliance to the NCC, to the relevant Australian standards, and make sure that they do go into the ceiling space, make sure that they do go onto a roof space if it's safe to do so, right? Now, I'm not going to suggest that everybody's got to climb up on a 22-degree pitched roof on the second story, but there's a lot of flat roofs out there as well, right? So, you've got to be able to get up there and have a look if it's safe to do so, to actually, make all these checks. We've also invested heavily in equipment. So we've got a lot of electronic devices, to a moisture meter. We've got a FLIR thermal camera, looking for detection of leaks. We've got laser levels that we can put up to make sure the walls are square and ceilings are level and things like that. So
maybe like you can ask what equipment they've got, check the Google reviews, check their website, see, and maybe, like Ed said, get a sample report. It's very important to see what type of reports they do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really about making sure that the build that you're looking at investing into meets the minimum standards. Because we're not talking here about the extra over standard, right?
Yes.
We're talking about the minimum standards for building in Australia. So we're not out there trying to push for more. We're just trying to push for that minimum.
Wow.
Exactly right.
Well, it's absolutely been an eye-opener. I mean, I love going around after building inspectors, and I learn something every single time I go to a building inspection, whether it's an established property, one that's been renovated, one that needs renovation, or on the rare occasion, something that's new. But this conversation has been an awful lot of fun. I've learned a lot, and I hope that our listeners have also learned some of the things that you don't know that you didn't know, so that when you go into a process of looking at a property, you really start to think and question and find the right people that can help you on the journey in those areas of expertise, as you guys have pointed out. And some of the information you've given us has just been gold. Thank you for joining us.
No worries. Anytime.
In this episode, we've covered a very small part of our 10-step online course for first home buyers. If you would like to learn more about the process and how to buy without making a mistake, then head over to our website, www.homebuyeracademy.com.au. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss an episode. And if you like what you've heard today, please give us an iTunes review. 5 stars would be wonderful. It will help others find us as well.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this really useful. And if you have, please share the love with others who you know are in the same boat. We'll be back next week with some more priceless stuff.